All right, guys, David Stanley again with the great Colorado BDR experience on KTM dirt bikes. I'll introduce you to my crew as I connect with them, but this video is a quick run through of some of the special little things I've done to make this bike safer, better ride, and just an all-out better experience. One thing to call out is the steering damper. I absolutely love this thing. It's made by Scott's, and this is familiar to people that like to ride on smaller bikes, but this is a great way to address sand. It's a great way to address those hard hits that would normally tear the handlebars out of your hands. And it basically, on impact, it senses and provides dampening to keep that handlebar from jerking left or right. Okay, you can adjust it, but that's a really important part of my ride safety. Another thing to note is the BRP triple mount. So up top, or sorry, I should say handlebar clamps. So it gives me an extra inch of rise. I'm 6 foot tall, so having a straighter up ride is a more comfortable ride. But if you look close, there's elastometers in this thing all the way around, and it provides protection and comfort improvement as far as arm pump goes. I got that. It's designed to be used with the Scott's damping system, and my gosh, it makes a big difference. So that's a really awesome addition to the bike from a ride safety and a ride comfort perspective, that system. Okay, another thing I've done is, and I've talked about this a little bit before, but you'll see a dual USB port installed. I've wired it into the system, and I've put it onto a bypass switch. Okay, so if I push this, that USB system is getting power. If I turn it off, it completely separates it from the battery, so there's no risk of running my battery down. I'm running a Shirai lithium ion battery. It's got excellent capacity and cranking amps, so really suggest you get a lithium ion system when it comes time to replace your stock battery. Not to mention it's about 1/5 the weight of a standard battery. Other thing I've added is a windscreen. This was designed by KTM, sold by KTM for their 690s, and it happens to pretty closely fit the EXC style bikes. Only difference is this little notch, because the 690 has a headlight that goes up and follows that contour. So bolted it on, looks really good, and provides just that little bit of wind protection to provide some protection from the wind that would otherwise be pounding against my chest. Okay. Another thing that I've added is a map selector switch. That's by Trailtech, and it allows me to real-time switch between the 3 maps in my ignition system, and that gives me a stock, a mild, which really smooths out the power band, and a wild, which really gives some oomph when I want to do things like pop the wheel up over a root system or whatever. If I'm doing a more aggressive ride, more technical ride, where I really want to put that torque up front on my power band. Sena, we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but this is a remote control to control my Sena communication system, so I can keep my hands on the bars without having to reach up with my left hand and control my Bluetooth comms. So again, safety feature, convenience feature. I love to have music and comms with my riding partners, and so this is something I'm really excited to try out. Okay, talked a little bit before. I've got an old Oregon Garmin, and it works great, and that's one of the things that are wired into my USB ports. So this is a real great way to ensure that you've got GPS on your entire trip without having to swap out AA's along the ride. So constantly charge real time. Okay, so the other stuff that I've added are pretty basic. Skid plate. That's enduro engineering, and that is really helpful for sliding up over roots without getting stuck and risking damage to the engine. And so I've put that on. And the other little thing I've done is, if you don't have a pigtail hooked up to your battery, you really should. One, for a trickle charger when you're not riding and it's garaged, but also so that you can hook up power on the field, on your trips. So while I've got 2 USB ports up front to power my cell phone and my GPS, I may want to provide charge to my Bluetooth comms. I can run a wire directly to the helmet while I'm out on 4, 6 hour, 8 hour rides, which will happen during the BDR, or for charging things like my Sena Prism camera real time, so I don't have to be swapping out batteries. And we'll talk a little bit more about that Sena Prism and how it integrates with the comms as well in a later video. But those are a couple things I really wanted to point out. And we'll keep talking on this trip and pointing out some of the things that make this ride experience more exciting. But where I'm really excited is to see how we compare to the big adventure bikes. I think it's going to be a huge advantage for the fact that we're about 350 pounds lighter than they are. So looking forward to being able to throw this bike around that you otherwise could not do with an adventure bike. Talk soon.